So I think it is a lot about really making the choice and then backing it up, right? That's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, is that it's embodied, it's integrated. You are allowing that to inform your behaviors and how you act and how you move forward.
And I think you need a creative community.
Yeah,
I think you
absolutely.
need a community, and when I say creative, a community that is pushing the edges of their uniqueness and authenticity
Yep.
and owning that, not conforming to what this community is supposed to be.
You have to keep going no matter how many times you fall, no matter how many times you fail, no matter how many times it doesn't work or someone says no or you get turned away. You do have to keep going, and you have to be your own community too. If you don't have the people that are going to lift you up or be your shoulder to cry on, you have to be it for yourself. And that is the part that feels almost impossible sometimes, but that is the combination of the conviction and the delusional optimism.
Miss Mia Magik, welcome to the Creative Path podcast.
Thank you.
And I see you've worn the hat.
I've worn the hat.
You worn
just
the
for
hat.
you.
Just for me. And it's such a part of the story. It's
Yeah.
a part of the story. And I think it's probably let's just start there.
Okay.
Let's just really
go
start
for it.
there, because there was a time, I'm going to actually bring us back to 24-hour fitness. Do
Okay.
you remember this?
Of course.
So
How could I forget?
I'm at 24-hour fitness, working out. You walk up to me. I'm, oh, hey, Mia,
Yeah.
great to see you. And you use that opportunity, as you do, to be very direct. And you go, hey, give me the download about money. Like, how did you manifest $1 million client? What's going on? Like, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
And from that moment till now, you have built a witchy empire that is, I don't even know the numbers, but it has eclipsed 7 figures and is skyrocketing right now. You have books coming out. You are being invited to crazy events and places all around the world. You're leading retreats and all of this. And it all started with the hat. And so can you please take us into the hat and tie it into creativity and that for you?
Oh my goddess. Yeah. So, well, I remember even after that, seeing you at Liana's in the Palisades, and that was the end. That was the last moment right before I discovered the hat. I met this beautiful Persian girl at Burning Man, and she was wearing a black witch hat, and I was following her through the crowd in the night, and she was really tiny, but she had this big hat on, and I was just having these otherworldly visions. It was like the way they make psychedelic seem in movies, where everything kind of just is like wah 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 wah. But I was totally sober and following the hat. It was this beacon that was guiding me wherever I was going, because I was out with this girl for the evening. And as soon as I got home, of course, got myself a hat. I'm like, I've been looking for a magic hat. This is obviously the hat that I'm supposed to have, because the pictures that we happened to post from that evening, where we all sort of traded, me and 2 other girls wore the hat. We surrounded the hat and like we're praying to the hat.
And it was a witch hat.
It was a black witch hat.
Okay.
And those are my first photos that went viral.
Really?
And I remember all of these beautiful photos that I took at that home in the Palisades, one of those other times that I saw you and bumped into you in our past. And beautiful photos, girl in nature, spiritual wisdom, all the things. Nobody gave a shit. It's like 200 likes. Post one photo of the hat, 5,000 likes, 7,000 likes, 10,000 likes. Back to a picture of just me. 150 likes again. Another picture of the hat, viral again. And it just was, you know, one, in those days when you're trying to build an audience online, obviously you want to give the people what they want, but it spoke so much more deeply to me about beyond just what people wanted. It was something that we needed. It wasn't just in Harry Potter, something magical. It wasn't just in a fantasy or in a fairy tale. It was here and now. And here's this woman who's being, you know, looking at it from an outside perspective, here's this woman who's being brave enough to stand in what has been an iconic symbol of evil for the last however many hundreds, if not several thousand years. And I honor her courage and I honor who she's being. And I feel like I want to be a magical being. I want to be brave. I want to be myself. I want to feel free and liberated enough to do something that everyone tells me I shouldn't do, or that means one thing to them, but that doesn't mean that to me. And so people just really responded. They were so in awe. They were so inspired. They were touched, honestly, by my willingness to show up in the hat. And realizing how much it spoke to people obviously supported the confirmation for me of how it had spoken to me and what it had done for me that evening when I was following it and watching myself have these very visceral, visionary experiences just from following a girl in a hat. And so then it just became part of the whole journey. And it really felt like the way that the Sorting Hat in Harry Potter, you know, tells you where to go and has all of this wisdom. Like in the first Harry Potter book, it has this whole song. They cut it out of the movie, but it's truly unfortunate because it's a beautiful poem and song about the hat's wisdom. And that's how it felt for me, was like, this hat chose me. The witch herself, the devotion to the goddess, that ancient feminine wisdom chose me to be the person that was willing to create a path for this hat to be remembered and reclaimed in the modern day. And it really is, it's a trail that has not been blazed. And that means that, you know, I get a lot of fire in my face sometimes, but it's been so incredibly worth it. And I feel so grateful that the hat chose me.
And so I love that, hearing how the hat really is an emblem of courage and an emblem of authenticity.
Yeah.
And because I don't think people, before you put the hat on, realized what a witch you were.
No. I didn't resonate with the word. I was like, no, I'm a wizard like Harry Potter, even though the school is of witchcraft and wizardry, you know, but it's such a word that people have judgment around. So I was like, I'm not a witch.
What do you see as the difference between a witch and a wizard? Just
the origin of the word is ultimately the same. And I think that people nowadays, maybe it's a little more cosmic or celestial. It's a little more etheric and energetic to be a wizard than it is like herbs and earth and somatic and tantra and pussy power and healing, really. That I would say that's sort of the mainstream distinction, but even the two words, they both come from the same origin, and it just means wise, or one with wisdom.
Got it. Yeah, because I don't see Gandalf with pussy power. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
don't
God
see
bless
him
him,
doing
but
his
no.
tantra. I don't know. And so, but I do appreciate that, because what this podcast is really a celebration of is creativity in all its forms. And I think that to speak to the embracing of, I don't want to say an identity, and I also don't want to say a persona, but embracing
It's an archetype.
An archetype. You're embracing an archetype, and the embracing of that archetype unlocked more of it within yourself already.
Utterly.
Can you take me into what started to unlock the moment you really owned it?
Oh my goddess, yeah. There was so many things. I think that one, as a little girl, I read all these fairy tales, and my two favorite fairy tales, one was a girl who pretended to be a boy in order to become a knight, and she had this healing gift. That was her power. And the other one was about this girl who was half goddess, and she had this ability to communicate with animals. So these are these two iconic characters in my young adulthood that I followed and watched. And as I put on the hat, not only did I recognize how much other people wanted to believe in magic, right? Like it isn't just that we liked the Harry Potter movies. It's because we all want to have that day come in our lives where someone says, hey, you're magical too. You have powers beyond your wildest imagination, and you have the capacity to transform your life or become the hero of your own story. And so really for me, having the hat also, it honestly at the beginning, and now of course it feels like so much a part of me, but at the beginning, I felt more whole with it. I felt more myself. I felt like, oh my goddess, this is who I've always been waiting to allow myself to be, to give myself the permission to walk through life as. And yeah, everything after that. Then it was like, okay, well, I'm going to show up and teach people about their magic. It doesn't have to be just like spirituality, which is great and amazing and comes from the breath of life, and spirare in Latin means to breathe or to breathe life into. So we're all in our spirits. We're all just like breathing new life and ideas through our minds and with one another. But for me, as a devotee of the earth, as really Mother Earth and Pachamama and Gaia being my greatest teacher. And, you and I have walked through the redwood trees.
Say, I'm one of few people probably that got to go
very few
that into your sacred space up there.
Yep. And with my dad and the whole thing.
Yeah. We go back.
Yeah, we do.
We haven't spent a lot of time together, but the times we have are very potent moments for sure. The cosmic awakening. Remember when you pulled me aside and told me about the whole driving through Arizona? Like, we've had these moments and I remember them because they're potent.
They're big ones. Yeah. And so those trees, the oldest and largest living beings on the planet, they really are my teachers. And so this hat and the thing that got so many women killed during the witch trials was just going out into nature, gathering herbs in a time when plants were our only medicine, doing ritual in sisterhood, even just having close female friends. You could be arrested, accused of witchcraft, tortured, burned alive, hung, drowned, just for being in the things that to me feel like my true nature and that feel like just the innate way of being for our species. And so really the hat was so much more. It was this archetypal energy of devotion to the earth and the wisdom that comes from listening to her and listening to our ancient ways, and how do we bring those practices and ceremonies and prayers really home into the modern day and integrate them in a way that allows us to manifest whatever we want and desire. And it is, it's an antenna. That's why they wore conical hats, was because they were meant to extend your auric field to allow you to be closer connected to God. And when you turn it upside down, it's the shape of the womb. It's the uterus and the ovaries. And so it really was also because the word man comes from manas, which means mind. And so the woman is the womb mind. And so this conical hat is like having that womb, and you have that beautiful, amazing, super viral reel about women having a womb being connected to the void and having this direct line to the divine. And that's what this hat ultimately was meant to be and to do for people. And so it really felt like that for me. And I felt the voice of the goddess also. That's why, like, even talking about a hat, sort of anthropomorphizing a hat as if, oh, it chose me. But I felt my antenna more clearly connected. I felt my transmission more viscerally. I was able to share the voice of the goddess and Mother Earth in a way that I never had before. And I do think it's because I also felt so much liberation from finally feeling like, oh yeah, I am the witch. This is who I am. I am a servant of the goddess. This is what I came here for. And, there's just no hiding anymore.
I feel very similarly about my hat. I have a number of custom made hats, and each one represents a different chapter of my life. So a lot of people won't know the behind the scenes, but for example, when my black one that I have is I went in to the artist and I said, I need a king's crown. I want to embody more of the energy of I'm stepping into a chapter of the king now. And then I have this red hat that I wear a lot that right now, and that hat being red came through in a chapter of I'm owning my shine. Like I'm ready to be seen, because I had just gone through this journey of supporting a lot of other people, consulting for other people's brands and businesses, coming in and just really supporting others a lot, and to the detriment of my own creative projects and things. I put those aside for almost a full year, really. And I came out of that and went, what am I doing? What am I doing? I feel as if I've choked off a part of my life force. So I got the red hat that I have as a way of reminding myself, you can shine too. Shine, take up space. And so I do think that there's something to putting on the costume that it's not even a costume, it's a uniform. It's every single person who did any sports knows when you put the uniform on, you're getting ready for game time. You don't practice in the uniform, you put it on for game time. And so there's something that happens in that moment. And I feel that way when I'm getting on stage and I'm putting on the hat. And so with you, and how quickly did it change your did it affect your business and become now, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah, almost instantaneously.
got it.
Within a couple of months. And also I met Bear. I was celibate for 3 years. I was manifesting a partner, and I was lonely and worried that, I was too much and I would never find anyone. I would be alone forever, and I was nomadic and didn't have a home. And I changed absolutely everything. Got myself a 4-bedroom house in Topanga, which is like the most expensive neighborhood in LA since that time. And met the man a month later. Business like 10x, not 10, but like 4x to the next year. I think I made like $500,000 that first year of the hat, which was just so like mind boggling. I'd made, barely $100,000 the year before. And yeah, it was just absolutely incredible. And also, talking about it as the uniform and the costume, it's ritual adornment. This is such an ancient practice. A priestess would wear a veil, or, kings and queens, royalty of all types and varietals from everywhere on earth wear some kind of crown. And we call that chakra the crown for a reason, because this is our connection up, right? Our feet connect us down and onto the earth and to our rooted groundedness. And that crown does connect us up to the heavens and to the star systems and families. And that ritual adornment, whether it's, the Nigerian act of, like our dear sister, all the painting, right? Painting every single dot has significance, has meaning, tattoos, right? In all of these traditions, that adornment has significance, and it does mean something, and it is programmed into us to respond to our adornment. And it definitely, the next year was when I started witch school. And at this point, we've had 10,000 people go through that program, and it's been so incredible. And I wouldn't have done that. Obviously, I wouldn't have done it unless COVID had happened anyways, because I wanted to I'm going to do a low cost offering for people. I've never done that before. I was just a one-on-one coach before that. And so that was really amazing to have something for everyone rather than just this select few. But also, I would never have called anything that I created that. I was still even like, I'm going to use the lens of magic. Okay, it's like muggles versus magical people. That's great. But yeah, it was the witch. It was an archetype, and really, driving this home that it does mean wisdom, witch and wizard, like the origin comes from wise. The fact that has become something that is so evil, our wisdom, our knowing of our divinity, our own inner godliness, our remembrance that we are a reflection of this earth, that right here, our bones are like the stones in the mountain, and our blood is like the rivers and creeks and streams flowing through our veins. And then we breathe in the air that we exchange with the plants and the trees and the algae all around us. And then there is electricity making our hearts beat in every moment. We call what properly functioning neurons do firing, because there's this fire inside of us. We are these elements. And that wisdom is the essence of witchcraft. And even craft comes from Old German and means strength or skill. So we're crafting the skill of our wisdom, and that has become the ultimate evil on earth that the major religions are fighting against, because we're not, they right? Like just the holographic reflection of our own darkness and limitation, but doesn't want us to remember this power and that we are God and the true wisdom that allows us to embody and live that way. And so, yeah, as soon as I put it on, it was a snowball effect. Everything was happening and changing quickly.
So can you speak to then from the perspective of people listening to this and a creative path, right?
Yeah.
To me, creativity is a process of putting together new patterns.
Yeah.
And when you combine that process with deep authenticity, you start to play, because it's new pattern making, and it's at authenticity, meaning the realness of inside your circle, let's say, and it's at the edges of your circle. It's a very vulnerable thing to do. And it's also when you're playing at that edge of creativity and authenticity, you're expanding. You can't help but expand. If you combine your creative essence with authenticity, you will expand. And expanding requires us to move through discomfort of who we have been in order to expand. So it can feel uncomfortable. And so people listening to this right now that are going, man, my version of the witch hat is this, and I haven't been able to bring myself to do it yet. Can you speak to, was there any resistance during that process? Was there any, how did you face the insecurities around it?
Well, just for everyone listening, again, okay, if the wisdom has been the thing that is evil, like, and magic and all of these things, so many people that have been programmed by major religion in their upbringing, it is terrifying. Because this was something, me doing literally everything that I do in my life is something that could have gotten me killed even just like 100 years ago, not that long ago. And so we refer to that in my tradition and in the witchy world as the witch wound. And this is a wound to our wisdom, to our power, to our magic. People often will feel, right, when they want to express something, they'll feel their throat chakra like, oh, it feels like something's strangling me, or I feel these claws in my back, or I feel like I'm, being choked, and it is this hanging. People were killed for being magical. People were killed for their creativity. People were killed for showing up as their authentic selves in personal power. If you spoke out against the church, you were killed. If you tried to protect someone from the church, you were killed. So we all suppressed our creativity and our magic. And it is terrifying. And there is a lot of resistance. And I still come up against resistance. I just was sharing with you before we started. I did just go to the World Economic Forum, what people think is like the ultimate reptilian stronghold on earth and like the greatest evil. and I didn't feel comfortable wearing my hat until I went to this incredible party the last night. And they had moons all around, and they had all these guys dressed up as friars, and they had a witch upstairs doing ceremonies. And I went out to the car and I was like, I'm going to get my hat. Woohoo! And I wore it and had these beautiful moments with the people organizing it. But I didn't feel safe even now with where I am, with how much this hat has brought to me, with how much beauty and how many blessings, because there are still parts of the world where this is not a safe expression, right? Like, I'm so blessed to live as a white woman in America, in California, where there's enough progressive thought for me to show up like this and go to Erewhon and not have anyone follow me home and kill me.
You're underdressed in that hat at Erewhon, just so you know. The way Erewhon's is a scene.
It is a scene.
But, so let me ask
I've definitely worn some crazier stuff than just the hat. But
so do you? It's not a actual fear of someone coming up and killing you, but there is that ostracization, fear of death. There is.
Honestly,
what is the actual
sometimes
fear?
it is. Sometimes when I go out into nature, the greatest place of healing and nourishment for my spirit and for my continued teaching, like who I will always be a student to, nature. I still sometimes I'm like, oh my God, what if someone tracks my phone and then they know that I'm out here and then I get killed? Like, it's that cellularly integrated in at least someone like me, who's showing up in a big way as this iconic sort of archetype of evil. But it can come in making sales videos. It can come in sharing practices that have changed your life. It can come in a myriad of ways. And so, yeah, I'm so blessed that I've had friends like you and like Ryan and all of these amazing people, like Layla, all of these people in my life who have encouraged me to keep showing up as who I am and have cheerleaded me and said, yeah, girl, we believe in you. You got this. Keep going. And I'm very lucky that I don't have a lot of haters. Like, I get the odd Bible verse as a YouTube comment, but the parts of the Bible that I know, I like ask and you shall find, knock on the door and it shall open. Like, yes, love thy neighbor. Okay, cool. There's parts of it that I do agree with, but I don't get a lot of hate, which is really uncommon for someone who's showing up the way that I am. But for me, the biggest pieces were, like I mentioned to you, I had corporate clients like Red Bull and YPO that I don't have those clients anymore. As soon as I claimed this hat, there were parts of the world that didn't, or parts of my work that were no longer welcome or accepted, and of course there's a beautiful red-tailed hawk just like soaring up right as I'm saying this. And it is because like there's this is the higher perspective. Like I have to zoom out. And I really truly feel that I was in such devotion to the goddess that a lot of the personal resistance that I would have felt as Mia, it was as if there was something animating my body. I was almost just taken over by this force that was greater than me and blasted through those edges of the comfort zone and those old boundaries and those old identities. And it was like I didn't have a choice. I couldn't do nothing else except just keep going. And I did. And now it is rare that I have resistance to what I'm doing. Obviously it does still happen, but in my, especially like new retreats, or it's very hard for me to find a ritual that's truly transformative and life-changing because of the depth of the work that I've done at this point. And it's fun for me to find a new modality that really stretches me because it's rare, because I've been stretching on my own.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you want to know what all the Creative Path podcast guests have in common? They have found a way to monetize their creativity. They have found a way to earn a living doing something that they love, where they are rewarded for the uniqueness of them. And that is a key pillar to living a joyful and fulfilled life. You have to earn a living doing something that you enjoy. And so if you are an artist, a creative, an entrepreneur, a coach who is wanting to scale your impact and scale your income through your unique creative expression, then I want to invite you to check out the description of this video so that you can find a link to my blueprint that I have used to generate hundreds of millions of views on my content and millions of dollars in revenue. This will give you a clear step-by-step understanding of how you can do exactly the same. All right, back to the show.
And so when people are looking at this journey of, I'm going to put on the hat and I'm going to do it, there's a adjustment period, and you get comfortable in a certain way. Yeah. And then suddenly it's a spiral, right? We talk about it as an upward spiral. Mm-hmm. And so right now we're talking off this podcast about some of the, re-inquiry into the hat and do I wear the hat? Do I not wear the hat? How do I, and that inquiry, do you think that like, will that just continue to happen forever? Is that really a synonymous to just the life path of, you've accepted this part of yourself as a result of that deep creativity and authenticity, the universe rewarded you, which I personally feel happens. I think when we can step in, when it like click in, it unlocks more life force. And that life force that we put out will now create a vacuum that calls in more life force that has to be filled. And if you put in proper structure around that, the life force that comes back to you can be financial. You need the right structure for that to happen that way. But in that exploration, will the creativity, authenticity, will that always be challenged again? So what you're going through now, let's say you figure that out, it'll, a year from now, 2 years from now, at the next level, it'll be the same kind of curriculum. Do you see that? Or do you think it could be something just completely different?
I mean, can you ever really look into the future and know what your curriculum is going to be?
You're a witch. You're supposed to. Come on.
Well, that's not my gift. I'm a healer. I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not a future seeker. I can definitely do all the interpretations of the fortunes, but I don't really see the future, And so I think that for me, maybe because right now, like my book, it's called Intuition. I signed with Hay House, a very spiritual, known for their woo-woo publishing. My second book is already called Witchual. I'm in the process of writing that. It comes out in April of 2025. Like there's a big momentum right now with me and the witch and that archetype, and I'm rolling with it as I'm in such deep service to it. I will not ever run from it because of what it has given to me, how it has rewarded me. And I'm going to these places. I'm going on these big trips, with big thought leaders. And when I hand someone my book and it has the word witch in it, or even like that my partner is in tech, even though I actually make more money than my partner, everyone's like, oh, cute, like little witch, and they kind of like give me a little pat on the head and like, oh, look at your sweet little brand, like, ha, 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 ha. And so I don't get taken very seriously in some of these entrepreneurial circles, even though I'm like, I could teach you how to make your business way fucking easier because I built mine on pussy power and fairy dust, but like, that's fine. Don't take me seriously, you know? But they don't often. Like people who have built their business in more traditional ways, the fact that I did have a 4-hour work week for the first 3 full years of my business, they don't think that really counts. It's like it doesn't really make sense, and they can't really conceptualize of me being an entrepreneur. And that's fine with me. I'm like, okay, great. But that is definitely work, right? To be able to value myself and to be on these big trips with big thought leaders. Like I went to Antarctica last year and Tanzania a few months ago, and being on these big trips with people who, instead of spirituality being their number one priority, which mine was, they made business and finance and growth in that way their number one priority. And I made spirituality my number one priority. And it brought me business as a result, as a blessing, sort of in reward to that devotion and that commitment. And so that's a big edge, you know, to feel like unseen by this world that now technically, because I'm a successful entrepreneur, I'm part of, but that the world itself or that realm, that group, they don't really see me as included. You know, they don't really feel like I belong.
Which is funny because to me, that just seems like the actual necessary path for anyone embodying the archetype of the witch is to
be ostracized,
to feel that I don't
outcast.
fit in. I'm outcast. I'm being judged. I'm being shamed. Like I don't really belong here. That seems very much tied into the archetype of the witch, and to be able to hold that, transmute that, and step into it even more fully feels as if it is the way that you honor it. I mean, you're doing it, and so I acknowledge you for that.
Thank you.
And I want to ask you about. You talked about the 4-hour work week and building your business with pussy power and fairy dust. I want to just tell us more about the way that you approach building business, because it's obviously not traditional and involves a lot of creativity. The way that if you even just wearing the hat, but also what you talk about and the way that you share. I see a lot of creativity in it. So talk to me about how you bring your creative expression to build a highly successful brand.
Well, again, my magic is healing magic. That really is my greatest power. And so that's what I used on myself. I built my business. I got to the point that I did by having a spiritual practice that was like the entire day. You know, I didn't have that much else going on. So it was like, okay, well, I'm going to do yoga and I'm going to meditate and I'm going to, you know, pull tarot cards and I'm going to just lay underneath this tree for an hour or face down on the earth, or I'm going to do a breast massage or a pleasure practice or whatever it is. And that was how I spent my days. I was not willing, after I left my cooking job, which was my first job on the spiritual path, which I think was when we met, over 10 years ago, I left that job and I know it's been a long time. It's like, so crazy. Wow. Yeah, a long time ago.
My goodness, like we were babies.
2012, I think, something like that. Yeah. When I first learned to meditate and I left that job and I just was so unwilling to go do anything else that I didn't want to do. I was like, I'm not going to spend time doing what I don't want to do. I'm not going to give my life force to something that I hate. I would rather be broke and happy than rich and miserable, or even like safe financially and miserable. And so it was just filling my days with things that made me feel good, and not just in the like numbing or escapist type of pleasure, the way that gorging on chocolate and ice cream might give one pleasure. Sometimes the things were uncomfortable. Sometimes in a pleasure practice, I would hit a wound inside of my body or a part of my internal system that felt so much pain, and I would be screaming and crying and in agony and frustrated and, you know, having old traumas come up or whatever it is, all the times that I said yes when I meant no, and going through that on the other side is what then felt good. The liberation, the willingness to be uncomfortable, the passage through the pain always brought me to the light at the end of the tunnel. And so that was how I spent my time when I was building my business. And I just was in a state of trust. I was like, I'm going to let the clients come to me, and they would. You know, I never posted about working with people one-on-one, but I would have, you know, when I had 4, 5, 6, 7,000 followers on Instagram, I would have the perfectly aligned people reach out and say, you're who I envision myself as becoming when I've healed X, Y, and Z thing. You express yourself truthfully and authentically. I want to do that. Can I work with you? And I would say yes. And so part of it was that. And then part of it was specific ritual. I did do candle magic spells, and that's one of the oldest types of magic. You literally use a small candle. You don't want to use a big one because you have to sit there and watch it burn the whole time.
You took me through this.
Exactly. Yeah, we just did it. New Year's. Exactly.
Yeah. I want, before you tell it,
Okay.
you know, Anthony and I actually went home, and I don't know if it was that night or the next night. We said, yeah, we'll just light them and have conversation around the topics and instead we just sat in silence for hours, just across from each other at this table watching our candles burn, just so you know that we actually did it. 2 dudes. That's how we spent, or it was like Saturday night. That's what we did. But tell the
I'm fully here for that. So candle magic, yes, I got to lead some of my best friends through this amazing practice on New Year's Day. So good, because it works. And small candle, carve in your intentions, whether they're symbols or words. Then oil from bottom to top, only base to wick. So you're like sending the energy up and out, rolling it in specific herbs, whatever herbs are aligned for your intentions, and then lighting the candle and sitting with it for 2 hours or however long it takes to burn out. You never want to extinguish it because then you're extinguishing your dreams. So you sit with it sometimes for 2 hours, sometimes in a practice, sometimes in conversation, however it unfolds. And so I did do rituals like that. I had, as you know, I find owls a lot. So I have a lot of owl wings, dead owls, not live owls. I find dead owls and I honor them and bury them and take their wings, receive the blessing. And I'd only ever found one male owl. All the female barn owls that I find they have little speckles on their wings, and I'd only ever found one male owl. And I was doing a ritual for the masculine. This is when I'd really started working with my inner masculine side. I was like, okay, I'm this like little fairy floating nomadic hippie girl. I am very comfortable with my feminine. I have some of these masculine qualities, like I'm direct, I'm assertive, I know what I want, I'm willing to go after it, but I wasn't doing much in the way of structure. I didn't have much in the way of foundation or discipline. So I was really working with my masculine side, not only with the intention of allowing my business to feel supported. Like I didn't even have a business, it was like a couple of coaching clients at that time, but wanting to have a business and wanting to manifest a partner. And so I was doing a lot of this work with the masculine side, with my own inner warrior. And I found this set of male owl wings, found a male owl, and I left them out on my outdoor altar one night. And the next morning they were gone. And they're like old salted wings. There's no meat. There's nothing, no one would want to eat them. I talked to the gardener and the housekeeper and nobody had any idea. There was not one thing left of them. And I just knew that Father Nature had taken them or had received them from me because it was just like weird magical things like that. So it was also a lot of ritual. It was a lot of intentional communication with the universe. And that's what my book really is about. That's what intuition is all about, is not just receiving the intuitive guidance that we do, but it's putting the wisdom, it's putting the embodied action and knowledge into the way that our behaviors are informed. And so I was really creating a lot of ritual in order to communicate with the universe. This is what I want. This is what I'm creating. And so that was really how my 4-hour work week evolved, was just spiritual practice and fun and magic and little spells that I would learn how to do. And then the perfect client or the perfect partner or the perfect home or the perfect next opportunity would come. But in terms of creativity, it really just was like, what do I feel inspired to do? And that was the biggest, like now, thank goddess, I've found an amazing social media team who has like taken that off of my plate because I just didn't have the capacity to be creating content on my own the way that I had been for many years. But that was really it. It's like, when do I feel inspired? What do I feel inspired by? What lesson have I just moved through? What is the archetype of the moon and how, okay, I want to do rituals and I can't always find friends that want to do them with me. You know, not everybody in my life is like down to meet up every 2 weeks and do a moon ritual together. So, okay, well, there's a bunch of people online who want to do rituals with me. Like I'm going to offer it to them for a low cost and they're going to be excited about it. And then I have people to do ritual with. I have this built-in coven of people who are so willing and so excited. And so it really just evolved. And Witch School was my first program, and that did come from COVID and people being at home and wanting to learn. And a sister of mine was like, girl, why don't you just offer a low cost how to be a modern witch thing? She's like, I don't know what you know, just teach us about it. I was like, no, I'm not going to teach witchcraft. Like, it's my personal spiritual practice. Like, I don't need to teach about it. And when I did and I offered it, you know, our first class had like 120 people in it. And it was so incredible to see how many people just wanted some of these little easy tools to bring more magic and ritual and more intention into their life, and that it worked. Mm-hmm. And everything that I taught and everyone who really took those things to heart, their lives changed and their lives became more magical. And so that's really the creativity just developed from what I continued to learn and what I continued to see make change in my life, and just sharing my lessons and my challenges and how I was confronting my witch wound and dealing with my resistance, and just sharing as much as I could, you know, to a fault. Sometimes a lot of people know a lot about my life that don't know me, you know, but it really was just everything that I was told to share in order to help people move through the same things that, you know, you and I've been moving through for the last decade plus, or our whole lives.
Thank you for sharing all that. It's, I think, there's a lot of really great nuggets in there for people around something that I know that I've been living. You've known me a long time and have seen a bit of that journey. And this idea, so I moved to Miami I was in a relationship this last year, and she lived in Miami. So I thought, you know what, let me move there and see. And I spent some time there and I fucking hated it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Miami is not my long-term space. But what I was surrounded by was all of these people in private equity and VC and tech and founders and people that were having these conversations around, you know, the exits they just had for how many tens of millions and what their next ventures were. And it was this moment where I realized I have not been around these people. How is it that I went 38 years basically, and I just have not exposed myself to this world where the focus is business? That's the focus, building business. And one of the main metrics of whether or not your business is doing well is money. So these people talked about it so openly, and there was no shame around making money. That was the whole point. And it was just this whole really interesting thing. And I started thinking, what have I been doing with my time? And I had the same realization. I said, all I've focused on is deep inner work for years, for well over a decade. All I have done is point my attention at healing, at spirituality, at pushing my edges, and figuring out this part of me, this artist part of me that needed to share and needed to be seen, whether that comes from a wound or just is nature or whatever, that part of me that had to express. And so suddenly everything that I was building came from a place of all I'm doing is diving as deep into myself as I possibly can, doing shit that most people are unwilling to do. If I had some of the stories I have about what I've done, literally when you talk about the sexual healing and the screaming, I've been that screaming butt ass naked on a table, tied up while facilitators are like, it's just you know what I mean?
Fuck yeah, bro. Here for that.
All of that, all of those journeys. And I just had to share it. And I wanted to share it as real and raw as I could. And whenever I could, as creatively as I could.
Yeah.
And that started to become that started with filmmaking. And then that became poetry. And it's funny because I have a brand building program that the 3-month program goes live it, share it, monetize it.
Love it.
And everything that you just said is 100% what I believe if you want to build something that nourishes you. And that's what I love about you, is because you're talking about how what you've created actually is strengthening this aspect of yourself that feels home. It feels very much who you've always been, and your business is reinforcing that. And so many people, we know them, have built businesses that trap them where they can't talk about things and can't share about things, and they actually are prevented from expanding personally because of a business that they built.
Yeah.
And so where I resonate deeply with you is all I've ever done is share what I'm already living.
Yep.
And how can I more deeply live it? And so when I was in Miami, I just had this thought, I'm fucking brilliant. I really am. I'm a really smart dude, very capable. I have so many blessings. And if I just had spent the last decade of my life focused on building business, I would be one of these people who had sold a business, exited, and all these things. And I went into judgment. I went into a lot of shame and guilt and judgment of just how I had spent 10 years and feeling like in this environment of Miami, I had nothing to show for it relative to all these other people who own 18 yachts, you know?
Even though those people are probably fucking miserable and have like total voids of happiness within their life. And it's like, oh, cool. You know, and that's what so many of these people that have exits, then they go and do the spiritual work because they feel empty and they realize that those hundreds of millions of dollars aren't doing shit for their well-being spiritually, mentally, or emotionally.
And then they hire me.
Exactly.
My last client was an exited founder who goes, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm fucking miserable. I need help me. And so it was a really interesting thing. But what I want to acknowledge, and for people listening too, is just I went into a period of feeling really inadequate.
Yeah.
And feeling some level of even regret for how I had chosen to spend so much of my time and energy. And to that point, I'd love for you to speak to how you felt before it worked. Do you know what I mean? When you were doing all these rituals and you were in that, because there are a lot of people listening to this right now who feel as if they are living authentically, but it's not working externally. And so how were you feeling in that? What is your message to those people?
I think I was feeling, really defeated. And I don't want to say I was completely hopeless, but the hope was this tiny spark. It was just a little ember. It did feel like trying to just put myself back in that place in my shoes during those years. It wasn't that long ago, really.
We were sitting naked at Liana's out in the sun, and you were like actively working on manifesting, scripting a different reality for yourself.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
That wasn't that long ago.
And and honestly, Liana and her mom, the iconic witch Deli, God bless her, like they're the ones, that was really when it changed. That was like really living at Liana's house, being so cared for with that incredibly generous family. And then her mom kind of taking me under her wing and having been in a coven for 30 years and like really guiding me as a witch. That was when my life really changed. That was only 5 years ago. And I credit Deli with so much. I'm like, I would not be the witch I am without her.
Want to know something crazy? She was a client of mine.
God bless. I love her so much. She's just, like icon. And I think that, I mean, when I got to Australia, for that period, I was so and also disillusioned. I was like, I do feel like myself and I feel whole and I feel good and I'm happy kind of, but I actually wasn't. I was miserable with the fact that it wasn't working and it hadn't gotten where I wanted it to go. And living there with them for 6 weeks, that was when I was there over New Year's and I made the choice. Like I made the decision on that New Year's. I am done with this life. I am living what I want and who I want to become. I'm changing from this day forward. I'm never going back to this scarcity, not just financially, but in feeling not enough, feeling unworthy within myself. No, I'm not going back there. So I think it is a lot about really making the choice and then backing it up, right? That's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, is that it's embodied, it's integrated. You are allowing that to inform your behaviors and how you act and how you move forward. But yeah, for anybody who's feeling, but I think I am myself and but I know what I'm meant for. You know, I saw you posting about something else. I was just like peeping your stories before I came over here and how you built the brand. And someone told me at Summit one year, again, like almost a decade ago, as I was starting off on this journey towards wanting to become a conscious entrepreneur, he said the two things that it requires are conviction and delusional optimism. Like you have to be a little delulu to really think that you can, in a world that is not built to support creative, spiritual, mystical people becoming the powerful entrepreneurs and ideally like thought and global leaders that we're all becoming, that, you know, like you and we've been like rolling, and our community, most of us that started off on this path back then, like most of us really have risen and are doing incredible.
Our tribe,
yeah, we're crushing it. We're the best.
I tell people all the time that you see there's a lot of these influencers you're seeing right now and whatever, and you're like, oh, there's like a California crew. You don't realize we grew up together.
Yeah. We've been doing this thing.
We attended each other's stuff early on. People came. I was leading workshops back in Azri and I were leading like couples things and artistic creative things back in 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
And that the level at which everyone's playing now is amazing, but it also speaks to the power of community.
Totally. Yeah.
The necessity, when you were talking about Deli and Leon, like there were people who called you forward.
Absolutely.
And from us sitting at 24-hour fitness and you just being, hey, what's going on? To full circle, you taking me through your witchy candle ritual on just a couple weeks ago, and me sitting there with a really good friend of mine, another guy, and how we spend our Saturday night is in silence watching our candles burn together. Like it speaks to a very key component. And I think you need a creative community.
Yeah,
I think you need a community. And when I say creative, a community that is pushing the edges of their uniqueness and authenticity and owning that, not conforming to what this community is supposed to be. It's actually everyone is going, this is uniquely me and I can shine and I'm going to be celebrated by people. This is a safe space for me. And I think that's absolutely critical.
Totally.
And
everyone creating
huge.
what they're here for, like creating your dharma, creating your path. You know, that's really also, we are all leaders. Like we all have created these paths for ourselves that didn't really exist when we started out. And I think that's another piece of it, is that for everyone who isn't there yet, yes, you absolutely do. It's really, you can do it on your own, but it's really fucking hard. It is really hard if everyone around you doesn't believe that it's possible, tells you that you're crazy for thinking that it is. You know, you don't have the kinds of support that we all had. And now there was like two sides of it, right? Is that when one person would rise, like when you got the $1 million client, we were all like, oh, damn, like how the fuck okay, we gotta like, you know, we want to keep up. You want to work harder. You want to keep going more. So it was motivating. It was challenging. It was confronting, but it was never competitive. It was always inspirational. It was always like, okay, well, if one of us does this, then one, you know, there were other sisters who like, I was the first one to get paying coaching clients. And then all of a sudden they want to stop modeling or stop acting and like they want to be a coach. And we all just kind of like built and shared and collaborated and cross-pollinated and did workshops together and led little activities and things. And so I think that is a really big piece, and you have to keep going no matter how many times you fall, no matter how many times you fail, no matter how many times it doesn't work or someone says no or you get turned away. You do have to keep going, and you have to be your own community too. If you don't have the people that are going to lift you up or be your shoulder to cry on, you have to be it for yourself. And that is the part that feels almost impossible sometimes, but that is the combination of the conviction and the delusional optimism. And that's something that, you know, some of my dearest brothers have really reflected to me. Like one in particular, I got a text a few months ago and he was like, Mia, you were singularly focused and everyone told you that it was outrageous, and you were being a little too fantastical, and you're just like living in your little fairy tales, and people didn't want to enable you, and they thought you were just like kind of full of shit. And he's like, and you stayed so devoted to this vision and so committed to it, and look what you've created now. And it's absolutely incredible. And it's because I did not give up. And it didn't matter if even, some of our friends, when I was manifesting Bear, were like, oh, just get on the dating apps and just settle, and like, just give this guy a chance. I'm like, no, that guy is not my king. I'm not attracted. I don't feel interested in him. I'm not going to just settle for something less than the dream that I'm holding for myself. And the same went for my business and my creations. And that really is a big part of it. If you don't believe in yourself, it's going to be impossible. And it's okay to not like fully believe in yourself, but the invitation is to work through that, work through the pain, work through the limiting beliefs, work through the sexual trauma, work through any of the wounds that you have, that your inner child has experienced, anything that you've been through. It is so valuable. And every piece that you unlock or unearth will be able to be filled with more magic, more belief, more conviction, and will continue to draw you closer and closer to what you want.
It's a mic drop. That was really beautifully said. Beautifully said. And the one piece that I'll add is, if you don't have it, pay for it. Legitimately, the reason why I have my programs and communities or I coach is, there was a time when I needed the money. I was coaching because this is how I pay for my life. I'm not in that position now. I don't have to take one-on-one clients now. Why do I do it? Because I love helping people. And I remember that hiring a coach changed my life.
Yeah.
And I know how much having a community changed my life. We've just talked about how we've been a part of each other's community for many years. Yeah. And so if you don't have that, join Mia's.
Anything.
You know what I mean? You got a whole empire.
Yeah.
You want to know how to build a brand. You don't have people around you that believe in you. I have my brand building program. Yeah. It's okay to pay for it. I think people have this idea that manifestation means free.
Totally.
Manifestation is not free. It sometimes manifestation appears as the invitation to join that thing that you have to pay for.
Completely.
And so I just encourage people. I'm going to tell one quick story, which is that I remember when I was early on, and I had my spiritual awakening in January 2013, and it was through 2 ayahuasca ceremonies, and it just changed my world. And suddenly I went, oh my God, there's a whole new world available to me that I never knew existed. I have to learn as much as possible about it, right? How do I be an A+ spiritual student? And so started listening to all the podcasts, reading all the books. I at the time would come home from work. I was a personal trainer at the time. I would smoke weed and watch Netflix, and I would eat fast food. And then I would still go personal train. I would come home. I would smoke weed with fast food, but I would watch spiritual YouTube videos. I would watch Matt Kahn and these people. And I was just taking in this information. And it must have been a Matt Kahn video or a Teal Swan video or something like that. And in pops this infomercial ad from Ty Lopez. Do you remember any of these? Ty Lopez?
Of course.
Of course.
If you don't remember the Ty Lopez videos, like, what were you doing?
In his garage with his Lamborghini or
100 Lambos,
like, I got all my Lamborghinis. And anyway, he starts talking, and then I just am watching this thing go, and he says something so important, which is, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So who are those people? And so I paused the ad, not the video, I paused the ad, and I write down, who do I spend the most time with? And then it like leads into this 90-minute masterclass. So I just go and
wow, you actually did one.
Yeah,
okay.
Totally. And then I'm 15 minutes into it, and he says, you should follow the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 rule, which is 1/3 of the people that you spend your time with should be looking up to you and you're leading them. 1/3 of the people should be your peers so that you can trade insights, and 1/3 of people should be calling you forward that you look to as role models. And I once again wrote it all down, and I had no one in the role model section. I legitimately had a lot of people that looked up to me. I had a few people that were kind of in the peers, and it just dwindled, and there was no one that I was looking to in any way that I felt inspired to model any aspects of my life around. And I went, okay, how do I change that? And that led me to purchase a ticket to go to Costa Rica, to go to a retreat, a wellness retreat. And who was facilitating that wellness retreat? Alexi Panos and Preston Smiles. And we just hit it off. And they will eventually be on this podcast, but we hit it off. They lived in LA.
Yeah.
We became friends. And next thing you know, they're asking me to come on the road with them to Australia to be a facilitator for their program. And that right there was the stamp of, we believe in you, super important, and we're going to expose you and help you. And from that moment, it was a rocket ship, and it's had its up and downs.
Yeah.
But like that was the moment for me of going, okay, I'm going to be okay. And it came from investing in that retreat.
For
and
sure.
It came from the awareness of, I don't have that community. And so for anyone listening to this, get the community that supports you and believes in you and encourages you in your dreams.
And that, I love that you said that, because the investment in yourself in those moments where you feel like you don't have the thing, or like you haven't gotten the exposure, you're like, I'm doing great, I have all these amazing ideas, I want to share, but I don't know how. That I have found as well, investing in myself, even when I had no money. Like, I hired my first coach on a credit card with $200 in my bank account. Like,
Me too.
I opened up a credit card with, 25% interest and put $10,000 on it, and literally had $200 in my account, did the 3 months of coaching. And within 6 weeks after finishing that 3 months of coaching, I signed my first $10,000 client. And because of the holographic nature of reality that you and I are so familiar with, when you invest in something, when you say yes to, like right now we're doing a money magic challenge in my community, and so many people ask, even my friends are like, hey, like, can you send me the money magic? And I'm like, yeah, I would, except the goddess is not letting me give it to anyone for free, because then you don't have skin in the game. And even my partner is the only person who I gave it to, and he's not doing it. It's like, okay, well then, sorry, like nobody gets it for free. You have to have skin in the game. And when you invest in yourself, because money is just one form of energy, but it is, like you were saying about Miami, it's this mark of success. It's this societally agreed upon measure for our time and our effort and what we're doing in our lives. And when you say to the universe, hey, this spiritual growth, this personal development, this retreat, this thing that I feel in my soul is going to expand me. For me, it was like certifications. I have like 15 alternative healing modality certifications. Some of them I never used once after I left the retreat, but I knew I was supposed to be there. I knew I was meant to receive the healing that training would provide me. And every time I did that and I communicated to the universe with this particular form of currency, of energy, I said, hey, I'm worth this. I am valuable enough to deserve this thing, or to place myself as a reflection of these $2,000 or $200, whatever it is. The universe responds. That is an action. That is an embodied piece of wisdom that then you cannot help but shift the fabric of your reality on the other side, because the old version of you would say, oh, I can't afford it, or oh, I'm not worth that, or oh, it's not actually really going to help or change anything. But it always does, because just by you saying yes to it, you change and you shift the timeline and you become a different version of yourself. So absolutely 100%. And for me, that was investing in getting myself a big 4-bedroom house instead of a studio apartment, or whatever the case may be. And those choices were massive, massive shifts. And it takes that delusional optimism, but remembering that you are the reflection of that value. And that's something I always work on with clients too, is they're like, oh, I'm afraid. I'm like, okay, well, I know that if you recognize that this 10, 20, 100,000, $1 million, you are the reflection of that value, you will receive it tenfold. And it works every time.
And there's only one question I have left.
Okay.
As we land the plane, and I would end it now because it's been so good. But this is a key question that I think is fundamental to the entire Creative Path podcast, which is, I want to understand, when you are stepping in to intentionally create, what is the process? What is the way that you approach saying, okay, I'm going to work on my book, or I'm going to work on this new program design, or I'm going to record it? Like, when you go in intentionally to create, what is your process and how do you optimize for that?
Well, for me, my most important thing is getting fueled up, and I receive the most insight and download for my creativity in nature. So I was in the Swiss Alps 36 hours ago, and I went outside and, mountains and blankets of snow and the biggest snowflakes I've ever seen. Like, when we think about the little beautiful snowflakes we cut out of paper, snowflakes actually look like that. They are so intricate and so magnificent. And so I spent the day just admiring, they're the biggest snowflakes I've ever seen. And so I spent the day admiring the intricacies and the miracle of life and nature in that way. I have a new kitten that I brought to Switzerland with me and was like teaching her about playing in the snow and how to climb trees. And so for me, I'm like that. Nature is really that's what I do to prepare myself, because it's a place where I can hear beyond my own voice and beyond the noise and the distraction. And I feel like I can hear the voice of what's true for me and and the source of my ideas. And then at home, luckily I live outside in Topanga. I live in a very natural environment. And so it's really just about like a little bit of sunshine and some breath and my yoga practice and my meditations and drinking beautiful, fresh, clear spring water. And I don't really do much, honestly. I don't have like I'm going to sit down for my book, so I need to like sage myself and, do a shaking practice. I love to dance. I love to dance, do something physical for my body. So again, like yoga or dancing is a great way to do it for me. But also, the best way for me is just waiting till the inspiration strikes, like waiting until I have that clear message or that clear communication from the universe that says, hey, I want you to write this thing, or I want this to be what comes through. For this second book, I had 3.5 months to write the second one, where I had, like a year and 2 months to write the first one. So there's a lot of different deadlines, but that does just require me to be even more in the listening. And I do feel that I serve the feminine aspect of creation that has been sort of desecrated or like taken away from religion, from our relationship to the divine. So I refer to her as the goddess, and I just listen for her guidance, and I hear that most clearly in nature. And that really is just, it's simple for me, but that's where I feel most myself. It's where I feel the most connected to the divine, and it's where I always am able to get out of my own way and let the muse come into my life.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love the uniqueness of everyone's creative process. And just you're the first person to really talk to the power of nature for that. And I really appreciate you bringing that in.
Yeah.
It as another.
Yeah, beautiful raven.
Beautiful
Perfect.
raven.
The magic.
Perfect.
Yeah,
And
I love to
so-
do something that people can use is any element, tree, river, mountain, stone, I'll look at it and I call upon X. You said it in our prayer. Please write to me, through me, anything I'm meant to receive in this moment. And I have a free download I can give it to everybody who's listening of a meditation. And I just use a channeled writing practice. And so that will often, using stream of consciousness writing kind of like helps us get the thoughts and the chatter out of the way. And so I'll write a message from the river or from the redwoods and get all of this, just anything that wants to come through from that energy, either as guidance for me of like, hey, today I want you to do X, Y, and Z, or hey, today, like, write this message from us. That's how I wrote my entire Oracle deck, is I just went to the place that I was writing about and asked them, what do you want me to share on your behalf? And so that's also a really great way to just connect and receive those messages, and then also get yourself into that creative state.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll put that in the link in the show notes. Mia, please, is there anything else on your heart that you feel like hasn't been addressed or talked about that you want to say before we wrap this up?
Yes, my book. This is Intuition. It is out everywhere books are sold, and it is such a beautiful expression and collection of pieces of my heart. And so I'm very excited. I hope that everyone will purchase a copy and leave a review. But really, this is a beautiful exploration of the language of the universe and all of the symbols that I find in our lives communicate with us, and have really helped me to understand how I can then use ritual, use ceremony, use intention to respond and communicate to the universe in return. And that is really just the most precious gift in my life, and is how I built that pussy power fairy dust business. And so I hope will be a support for everyone on their creative path.
There it is. The link, once again, will be in the show notes. Congratulations on the book being out. You want to let people know where they can find your world and get into it in the online space?
Yes, absolutely. Everything is Mia Magik, MIA-MAGIK, website, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the platforms, MIA-MAGIK, Mia Magik.
And there it is.
There it
Mia,
is.
thank you so much for coming on here. We have these little moments, these plug-in points, and it's just so great.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of you.
Thanks, babe.
Really just having seen your journey and been there for some pivotal moments, perseverance,
Yeah.
the commitment, the authenticity, the willingness to take the arrows, the commitment to your celibacy and those periods of loneliness that I got to witness, the way that you even approach now that your love and your relationship and just all of it. I am so deeply proud of you and the person you are, and that I get to call you a friend. So thank you for being on the creative path with me. And everybody listening to this, thank you so much again for spending this time. My hope is that you take some of this witchy magic and you use it in a way that gives you even more courage to be your version of wise. Yeah. And so thank you again. If this has been valuable to you, please share it out on social medias. This will spread because of you, not because of me, because of you, because you're willing to share it, tag us. We'll repost it. Please leave a review on the show. Thank you, thank you, thank you for spending this time with us. And I want to remind you that always, in all ways, you're seen, you are heard, and you are loved.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you are interested in building a life that you love through the 3 pillars of relationship, business, and creativity, then I encourage you to continue checking out more of my content, including this video, which I really think that you will like.
Any person who is as adept as you are in poetry is a mathematician. You are using, different mathematical geometric forms in language. You just don't know that you're doing it, right? And you could say that music is just geometry that we listen to. And by, the same token, you could say that geometry is just the music that we listen to with our eyes.